horror movie fans, welcome to Cold and Trash Horror Movie Grinding Podcast. I am your host, Ian. This is the show in which we grind on the absolute worst horror and sci-fi movies we can find and make fun of just how bad they are, as well as praise the good cult classics that have been lost throughout time. Now get ready, because we're about to dive real deep inside of Hollywood's dumpster in search of the good, the so bad it's good, and the fucking ugly. Now put on your seatbelt, grab a beer or two, and enjoy the show. Yo. Top 10 cult horror movie directors of all time. Today, we're doing a list that I've compiled of the 10 most famous, most popular movie directors that in the horror genre that have cult following. Not so necessarily mainstream, but the directors that have made movies that over time, or throughout years, or even decades, have developed that cult following through word of mouth. I guess let's get right into it. The first one is my favorite of the bunch. Maybe not the best, but he's my favorite. Tobe Hooper. You know him from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course, the original, the classic, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
But not just that one, but also the second 1986 Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Much less popular, but a very big cult fan base. We did this on the show already. One of my favorite cult films of all time, in fact, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It's fantastic. Tobe Hooper is, I'd say, a very underrated director. You know him, of course, from Poltergeist.
Its form is revealed.
What is it?
Its focus is clear.
But also a little film called Lifeforce, which we've covered on this show before, of course. You haven't seen Lifeforce, please check that out. It's amazing. Check out my review for it. It's fantastic. Tobe Hooper, rest in peace. My favorite of this entire list here. But there are many more to go. So let's get into number 9. We have David Cronenberg. Definitely another cult following. He's a lot less in the mainstream than some of these other directors. Most famous movie is probably The Fly.
Have you ever heard of insect politics?
We did Scanners, Videodrome, eXistenz. We just did eXistenz not too long ago. That was a fun movie. Definitely plan on doing Videodrome and Scanners here pretty soon. But yeah, Cronenberg, he's definitely one of the top biggest cult film directors of all time. He is great. He has a new movie coming out actually pretty soon. This year, Crimes of Tomorrow, I think. I don't know, but it looks good. I'm going to have to check it out. Also, his son, what's his son's name? I think it's Brandon Cronenberg. I could totally be wrong on that. But yeah, he has a movie out too, and he's following in his father's footsteps. Yeah, so check that out. Number 8 director isn't actually really a horror movie director, but he has made a horror movie with a cult following. We've covered it on this podcast. That movie was called Sangre by Alejandro Jodorowsky. This guy, I was hesitant about putting him on this list because, like I said, he's not really a horror director. But he did do Santa Sangre, and he did a couple other movies called Holy Mountain and Fando y Liz. Not horror movies, but definitely have horrifying imagery. It'll freak you out for sure. So I think he should go on this list. Not only that, but Alejandro Jodorowsky. He's I mean, outside of the horror genre, he is, I'd say, one of the biggest cult film directors of all time. He's the father of the Midnight movie. His second movie that he ever made, called El Topo, is the first Midnight movie. This movie played sold out seats at midnight screenings in a small theater for something like 8 months straight, just all through word of mouth. It was fantastic. But that's an acid western. His very first film, Fando y Liz, that was so horrifying that it caused a riot. It's bonkers. But Santa Sangre, that is definitely a traditional horror movie. You could say it would be a reboot of Psycho. That is pretty close, I'd say. Definitely check that out if you haven't seen it. Check out all of those movies. Alejandro Jodorowsky, he is kind of an idol of mine. He actually might be Tobe Hooper, but as far as horror movie directors go, I think Tobe Hooper is my guy. But Alejandro Jodorowsky, man, he is just fantastic. Very trippy, very surreal. Definitely unlike any movie you've probably ever seen before. But anyway, let's go on to number 7, Sam Raimi. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. What? The guy who did Spider-Man? The guy who just did this new Doctor Strange movie? What? No, he actually started out with, of course, Evil Dead trilogy. Evil Dead 1, he did Evil Dead 2, and he did Army of Darkness, and he produced the reboot. And another movie called Drag Me to Hell. Big time cult classics. I don't. If you ever check out any of the other shows on Infamous Horror, there is another show. It is by the name of Hail to the Deadites. Yeah, Hail to the Deadites. This is a show by Evil Dead fans, and they interview people who have done things about Evil Dead. People who are some way have something to do with the production of the movie or other related stuff. Very popular. Check out Hail to the Deadites. And in fact, the producers of Infamous Horror, they did a documentary, also same name, Hail to the Deadites. So check that out. So, I mean, of course, I have to throw that into the list. I mean, this show itself would not exist without Evil Dead. So, big time. I'm not sure if Sam Raimi did anything other that was cult classic. He just kind of burst into the mainstream with Spider-Man. I mean, he's a great director, but I mean, yeah, sometimes you gotta start small before you gotta walk before you run. And speaking of which, that brings me to the next guy. And if you don't know about this guy's original movies, this will blow your mind. Peter Jackson. That's right. The guy who did motherfucking Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and King Kong. Yes, he is one of the 10 cult horror movie directors of all time. With the very first movie was called Bad Taste. That's just the best way to describe that movie. Very very much bad taste. It's about aliens that come and they they create zombies and eat people. And there's like a 20-minute long shooting scene with AK-47s. It is absolutely bizarre. It is crazy. I definitely plan on covering that movie on the show here pretty soon. But especially Dead Alive, also known as Braindead, that movie's insane. That's a zombie movie, very low budget zombie movie. However, it goes on record. I think still holds his record to this day. I could be wrong, but it at least used to have the world record of most blood on screen. Definitely got to cover it on this show. You gotta. Um, yeah, Dead Alive, Brain Dead, Bad Taste. He also did Frighteners. He also did a movie called Meet the Peebles, which is basically just Muppets having sex for 2 hours. And I don't know, for some reason, they found this guy and they were like, let's make him do Lord of the Rings. And he knocked it out of the park. But, like, what were they thinking? They got the guy from Bad Taste and Dead Alive. Like, what? That's insane. But anyway, yeah, that's Peter Jackson, number 6. Coming up, number 5, we have a much lesser known guy. He's Stuart Gordon. He's famous for Reanimator.
Herbert West brought a lot of dead people back to life, and not one of them showed any appreciation.
Another classic zombie movie. Most of these guys have done zombie movies. But also From Beyond, which we have covered on this show once before. That is H.P. Lovecraftian film. It is pretty crazy. You could say a guy opens up a portal to another dimension, and it's indescribable. But yeah, check that out. Check out Reanimator. There's been a couple sequels to Reanimator, but I don't think Stuart Gordon directed them. He's done a few other movies, but like these are the main two ones. Never broke out into the mainstream, but yeah, he's a good guy. Now my next guy on this list is the most controversial. Some of you would think, yeah, he totally fits, but some other people would say he does not because he's not good. I disagree. I think that this guy is a really good filmmaker, but his movies are universally hated. I'm talking, of course, about Rob Zombie from House of Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, Three from Hell. Of course, he did Halloween. He remade Halloween and Halloween 1 and 2, which angered a lot of people. And I think that a lot of people hate Rob Zombie because of that, but that's not fair to say, really. I mean, I thought they were all right, but also House of Thousand Corpses. A lot of people didn't like that movie. I loved it. We've covered it on this podcast before. Devil's Rejects is great. Three from Hell, not so good. Another one that is controversial is Lords of Salem. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I like 31. Not many people have seen 31. That's probably his least known movie. Came out in like 2018, I think. It's crazy. Another one I want to cover on this show. I mean, there's so many movies I want to cover, and I can only do 1 week at a time, so it takes a while. Now we're at the top 3. Number 3 hails all the way from Italy. He is Dario Argento. Biggest movie he did was Susperia in the 70s, which was, of course, recently remade and not as good. And I still, I'm actually somewhat new to this guy. I don't really know his movies that well, but I had to put him on here because he's so popular. Like but if you just look up cult horror movie directors on Google, Dario Argento will show up, and he's even outside of cult films, he's one of the most respected horror movie directors of all time. So you got to have him. Now, a movie that I did see from him was called Phenomena, also known as Creepers.
I love you. I love you all.
I saw this at Alamo Draft House, a midnight screening, and it blew me away. It was so bad it's good. It was pretty terrible, but it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was funny. It had Jennifer Connelly in it. One of her very first roles. I'm sounding like a broken record here, but again, another movie I want to cover on this show, Phenomena, aka Creepers. And in fact, I'm going to do it real soon. I'm going to do it in a couple of weeks from now. So look out for that. That'll be my next movie. Event Horizon, of course, will be after this one, but then it will be Phenomena. Number 2 is, where would any of these people be without this guy? This is the Godfather, the main man of zombie movies, George A. Romero.
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
We are down to the line, folks. We are down to the line.
I mean, come on. Come on. Of course, his most famous movie is Night of the Living Dead.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
But then the next few after that were some cult followings. Some like smaller films, bigger cult followings. Huge inspiration to almost every director that's made my list. Dawn of the Dead, of course. Where would we be without Dawn of the Dead? Of course, I'm talking about the original. The 2004 remake was also really good by Zack Snyder. Probably one of the better remakes. But Dawn of the Dead, the original, just really knocked it out of the park, changed the game. Without Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, we would not have Sam Raimi doing Evil Dead. We would not have Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. We would not have, like, Rob Zombie. His name is Zombie. And you bet your bottom dollar that it's because of Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead. This guy based his entire persona after George A. Romero's movies. I'm not really huge on zombie movies myself personally. I absolutely do love Dead Alive. It's amazing. But yeah, that's definitely like the same thing as George A. Romero's, and his movies are really good too. Whether you like zombie movies or not, definitely check those out because there's some well-made films. And lastly, we finally made it. Number 1, you already know who this guy is. I don't even need to say. You knew that this was coming. John Carpenter is number 1. He is the absolute best. He may not personally be my favorite. Tobe Hooper, I put him at number 10. Not because, he's my favorite, but John Carpenter is the most popular. He did so many classics. Of course, he's most famous for Halloween. He's got some other movies that are not quite as popular or quite as famous. A lot of them bombed the box office, especially They Live and The Thing, Mouth of Madness. These are movies that failed the box office. They didn't really do too well with critics. But over years, over decades, they developed such a huge cult following that we just did They Live on this show a couple of weeks ago. Definitely plan on doing it in Mouth of Madness. because they just absolutely they knock it out of the park. I mean, they're fantastic. John Carpenter. So let's go back through again. So number one was John Carpenter, famous for The Thing, They Live, Mouth of Madness. Those are his big ones. He has many others, but those are like the main ones. Number two is George A. Romero, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. Also, he did Creepshow, which was the very first movie that we covered on the show. He did many others, of course, Night of the Living Dead, and some other zombie movies. But like these are the bigger cult films. Number three, we got Dario Argento from Italy. Definitely somebody I need to check out more, but yeah. We got Rob Zombie. We've got Stuart Gordon, Reanimator from Beyond. We've got Peter Jackson, Bad Taste, Dead Alive, aka Braindead, Frighteners. We also have Sam Raimi, Evil Dead 1 and 2, Army of Darkness, Drag Me to Hell. We got Alejandro Jodorowsky, Sangre, Fando, Holy Mountain. You've got David Cronenberg, of course. Definitely could not do this list without Cronenberg. Known for The Fly, eXistenz, Videodrome, Scanners, and lastly, Tobe Hooper for Texas Chainsaw Massacres 1 and 2, Poltergeist, and Lifeforce. And that'll do it for my top 10 list of cult horror movie directors. Did I leave anybody out? What's your top 10? Let me know in the comments. I would definitely like to hear what everybody else's is, or give me your Mount Rushmore, so to speak. If I could put all 10 of these guys, make a top 4 Mount Rushmore, it would be Tobe Hooper, David Cronenberg, John Carpenter, and then probably Sam Raimi, possibly George A. Romero, but I think these are the big cult guys, influential. I might replace Tobe Hooper with George A. Romero, or maybe Dario Argento. It's tough, but John Carpenter for sure, absolutely. David Cronenberg, absolutely. Those two got to be on the Mount Rushmore. But personally, for me, I put Tobe Hooper and Sam Raimi. But yeah, let me know in the comments who makes your Mount Rushmore. And is it somebody who didn't make this list? Am I full of shit? Let me know. I gotta find out. I might do some more lists like this in the future. Maybe top 10 cult actors. That might be an episode I might do in the future. But yeah, for now, this is this, and then we'll go back to movie reviews next week with Event Horizon. Great, another classic cult movie. Not by anybody on this list, but yeah, it's Paul Thomas Anderson.
Paul Thomas Anderson was not in fact the director of Event Horizon. It was Paul W.S. Anderson.
He's all right. He's good. Yeah, but yeah, so check that out. We'll have a lot to say about it. And yeah, so this is definitely the shortest episode I've ever done, but then again, it's just me doing a list. So that's 10 horror directors. Take it easy, everybody.